Welcome to the visual development steps using the built project as an example. So I have some steps for visual development here, and we have what's been done so far in terms of collecting reference and setting the stage for some shape design and color schemes with the protagonists might be more rounded. The enemies might be sharper or blockier, sharpier. Sharpie Blackie. Some colors have been selected. We'll do some more on the match colors. We have some early stage sketches, which fall under the steps for gesture and line work. And then we'll go through some silhouette studies. We have some value study images. So down here as well, we got a little bit of color and value going and some newer, really cute ideas going on so far. So the steps are going to be doing gesture, showing motion and emotion with the line of action, doing lines that have some expression to them. So if we look at some earlier steps, we just goes really back to gesture drawing. So we're going to try and get a line of action, some movement, some motion, show what they're doing, have an attitude. We'll then take the lines that we start with and we'll fill those in with some silhouette and do some carving and some shape modeling, and then play with them with some of the brushes and do the value study on top of that, and then choose some color palettes using the color.adobe.com software. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. The first steps for getting this done are really choosing your pillars of design. So let's look at that first. So the pillars of design we've chosen here are dystopian, retro-futuristic, and retro-fitted upcycled pillar. So we got two retros in there. Now, what we should have had to go along with the key pillar words are a list of words and descriptions with the images. So we have the images dystopian here. So we could take a look. Dystopian, FUD, fallen apart, kind of wrecked, misused, overused, overpopulated. I think the movie Brazil is a good sample to look at, as well as City of Lost Children. There's a bunch of examples we could do. Blade Runner, of course, is both cyberpunk and dystopian. Retro-futuristic, we had to do some looks for that. So using like older technology that's been retrofitted to keep up with the demands and plugged into the newer technology. And retro-futuristic, that's retrofitted. My bad. I got my retros mixed up there. So the retrofitted would have pieces that have been used over again and plugged in with newer technology. You have like layers of older stuff that's kind of dogpiled upon with newer stuff and kind of retrofitted in order to keep it going for what you have. And then retrofuturistic is a bit tougher one. It's like using some older tech to display some newer types of sci-fi concepts or futurist concepts. So for the ones in here we have chosen. So I kind of know from the discussion what these were, but we really want to list underneath your pillars, you want to put down what exactly you mean by these images. Always use some sort of labels and words. Don't just put the images in there without description. So the pillars of design, just use like a simple pillar graphic. And for the description here, 3 to 4 pillars. 3 is the magic number at this point. Ideas upon which the visual style language is built upon, and list the ideas and then put the images to go with them. So that should be pretty straightforward. And here's a generative AI search from Google, just doing your due diligence here. Generative AI experiment. Retrofuturism and upcycled. So I use that to kind of get the retrofuturistic upcycle defined better for us right here. We kind of know what our words mean, as well as which ones we're really taken out of there. So bizarre technology, faded colors, dystopian themes, eccentric gadgets, machinery, robots, space colonies, interstellar travel, an anticipation of what science and technology design would look like. So it's kind of a futurism is kind of one of my favorite styles to do. And it combines the futuristic technology with old-fashioned design. So there's some examples there. And if we go into images, some really interesting images came up. I like this. The dog was one of the better ones here. That's kind of nice. But there's also been a few different sculptures and fashion designs. There's some the futurist movement in general is quite old. So it's over 60, 70, 80 years old. So you could look at the 60s and 70s fashion trends And I believe it goes back to the 50s, so it might be up to 80. But so that's something to help out there. So, and if we look at the actual definition as well, we can also look at what upcycled means. So, upcycle is a process of taking something no longer used and giving it a second life. So, it's another way of saying recycle, but reusing it for a better purpose or a different purpose, not just for the same purpose that it had before, as a new life on there. Okay, and when we look at retrofuturistic, retrofuturism is a creative movement that depicts how generations envision the future. And this is mostly through different literature. It can be a societal retrospect, it can be merging technologies with nostalgia. So yeah, it's like a nostalgic kind of glance at what some good examples are. So let's take a look at some of the imagery we get from retrofuturistic, and yeah, some really interesting sci-fi imagery here as an old school looking like steampunky train on the tracks on Mars or some alien planet. That's probably Mars, since that's probably the Earth right there. Yeah, blimp or other different era technology mixed with some sci-fi technology. Technology maybe isn't used anymore. And if I scroll down here, some other ones. I think Kubrick's 2000 or Space Odyssey's just classic. There's a bunch of and of course you got Metropolis and some other genres to look at. And then the other one we have over here would be dystopian. So dystopia. So these all kind of go together nicely. So I just wanted to define these a little bit more before we get started. So let's go ahead and jump into how to define this a little bit more. So you just want to see what you have so far. Now this started off with about 50 or 60 reference images, right? So we had the team filter down to just a few images for dystopian, a few images for retrofuturistic, and a few images for retrofitted. So, and they included some of their artwork as well as some found artwork. Like these robot sketches are not theirs, but these are. And so we have some fun sketches to play around with. There's the original built. There's built where you got a little tougher, and there's a kit bash built done with some 3D parts. Perfectly awesome way to do this, especially with the upcycled and retrofitted pillar. And there's some of the other original shapes. So it has different objects, some different facial animations, and we had some rounded shapes here that were added, as well as some of the sharper stuff. So maybe we'll think of the blocky, sharper shapes and the more rounded, bubbly shapes for the protagonists. We'll keep those in mind as we're doing this. So inside the pillars that we have here, looks like the fill got dropped down. Okay. The steps for visual development. So first we're going to do the line of action and emotion and remember to let our lines dance across the surface, do some skating and surface and ghost the lines before you put them down. Be loose, have some energy to it. Play with the pressure from thin to thick, from front to back. Use the law of overlapping arcs and shapes. Try to avoid scratchy, uncertain lines and imbalanced poses that look like they're falling over. And those are all easy to fix, especially with the digital drawing techniques. So we'll take a look at that. So let's go ahead and get a fresh image here, fresh canvas. And we're going to use Photoshop for this. So for the core brushes, I'm just going to use the basic brush here. The main brush that I use for Photoshop just involves a very straightforward pen pressure that allows me to go really super light and super thin, and then go really wide, thin to thick to do good gesture lines. I don't have pressure sensitivity turned on for opacity. That's under transfer. So it goes thin to thick pen pressure. I'm leaving that off right now, so I want to have some nice bold lines like if I were drawing with an ink pen. And I did a fairly good sized canvas, so I did 5400 by 3200. So that way I could start off in a corner and like draw my way across this. So I'm going to pull the built reference up in front of me. Okay, so here's the main ones. And so we're going to kind of build off the main two characters here, some more rounded shapes, and maybe make a bad guy or two based on what we had there. That one got really bright. I wonder why. Something to it. Oh, I guess I hit a button, didn't know it. And this was the icon we had before. So go straight into it here. So, put these on their own group so I could turn that on and off. And we'll call this designs that we have to build on. And we'll go up into the visual design step here and start off with the brush. So we'll zoom in a bit here. And so when you do a line of action and gesture, you'll really want to be exploring a character. A lot of times I go from neck down to leg, leg up to the other hip to the other leg. And then we go from wrist to elbow through to the other elbow to the other wrist. So there's this kind of flowing motion we have. And I had a Big Hero 6 on the brain really bad from this project. But, you know, it just happens, whatever your main and personal tastes are, or whatever you've watched recently might kind of trickle into your design. So just be aware of that. And so we have the kind of rounded eyes, we have the hat, the worker, we have the whole backstory to think about this character. So in playing with this, you might think of different ways to build this character. And my alarm just went off, so I will have to come back on the next video.